I want to talk about something near and dear to my heart today. Brazil being absolutely cooked. Now, I realize that I could do this. I could do this in a way that makes the United States national team not look that great. To which I would remind you, the United States did kind of dump truck Bolivia, who you might have heard have been to one World Cup in their history. So, I'm a big pro. I've always been a big believer. How do I put this? I've always been a big believer in Bolivia's ability as a national team, and the United States exhibiting dominance over Bolivia is a great indication of the fact that the U.S. is the best team in the world, is going to win Copa America and then the World Cup. That being said, we're not talking about the United States today, and I didn't want to turn it into a conversation about the United States because we're talking about Brazil, which is actually really funny when you think about it, because now we have somebody with an American accent who talks about soccer, football on the internet for a living, passing judgment on the Brazilian national team. Normally, I'd feel more out of place about that, other than the fact that I feel like a lot of Brazilians would probably be on my side here, including Ronaldinho. Apparently, somewhere he fits time in between his crypto schemes to fit in some Brazil criticism, which shout out to him. That requires a lot of excellent time management. Really impressive. But yeah, Brazil started its Copa America by making an incredibly easy group not look easy. They drew Costa Rica. Now, I don't think you understand exactly how ridiculous this is. This is the same it's not the same Costa Rica team. But it is a remnant of the same Costa Rica team that lost to Spain 7-0. Now, I know they beat Japan, and for a moment, it looked like Germany was on the ropes against Costa Rica in the two greatest minutes in sports when Germany and Spain were out, and both Japan and Costa Rica were through. But then Germany leaned forward in its chair, handed its controller to the big brother, and they managed to turn it on and just instantly score 3 goals with, no regard for human life in that position. But Costa Rica has gotten even worse in my estimation since then, right? It's almost like the name is an illusion, but I live in CONCACAF. I breathe CONCACAF air. I witness CONCACAF referees on a regular basis. And this team, on outward appearances and on quality alone, should have zero chance at holding a candle to Brazil. So before I fully dive in on this, I want to give the guys that did show up for Costa Rica a ton of credit, right? Because they still have to play a great game, even if Brazil's not playing well, they still have to show up and play a great game to be able to get this 0-0. It is a famous result for Costa Rica to start a Copa America campaign by dropping a 0-0 right on top of Brazil. That is awesome for them. I don't want this to come out as me bashing Costa Rica here. But let's just take a gander at the lineups. All right, there is not one Costa Rican player who is a regular at a recognizable team. Now, I'll give you Brandon Aguilera Samora, right? But we're looking at somebody that was concluding the season playing in the Nottingham Forest U21s, and he wasn't in the squad, bro. He's not even in the squad for the Nottingham Forest U21s, right? And everybody else that's popping up on this squad, when you look at these badges, whether it be Spartak Moscow, Montreal Impact, right? Herediano or Saprissa, a couple of teams in Costa Rica in there, right? You've got Millonarios in Colombia. These teams are not the types of teams that you should be able to build an entire squad out of and actually be able to handle the Brazilian national team. I don't care if it's the Brazilian C team. They're a 2-goal favorite over what Costa Rica is rolling out here, right? Like, I'm just trying to get that across to you, that there's always been a couple of recognizable Costa Rican players. They've always had one of the best goalkeepers in the world, at least for the last 15 years, in Keylor Navas. He is not there anymore. Right, their goalkeeper is Seguida. He plays for Ibiza. Right, like they don't have one guy to hang their hat on anymore. It's a team, and I mean, like, even when we played against them in World Cup qualifying and Navas wasn't there, it is a team of nameless, faceless dudes, and they still bring that Costa Rican pride or whatever. But come on, just the fact that they can hang with the United States on occasion, even with these guys, there's just no way. There's just no way. Like, here's the Brazil's starting lineup, like the Brazilian starting lineup. Alisson, Danilo, Eder Militao, Marquinhos, Guilherme Arana, Bruno Guimarães, João Gomes, Lucas Paquetá. I guess, he hasn't gambled on the Brazilian national team, so he's fine. Rafinha, Rodrigo, Vinny Jr. How? Right now, I realize that some people look at that Brazilian national team and go, oh, this is like the Brazilian national team's a lot worse than they were before. No, I think Brazil is a lot more similar to England, where they do have a ton of talent on their team, particularly offensively and defensively. Eder Militao and Marquinhos, you're going to be very hard-pressed to find a better pairing in your defense than that, right? Like, offensively and defensively, I think Brazil's team is as good as any team in the world, if we're talking about talent. And arguably, I'm saying arguably, the best front three that you're going to find. Right, Rodrigo and Vinny, what they've been able to do at Real Madrid and the level that they're able to play at, and also the familiarity that they have with whoever you want to pop into that third spot, whether it's Martinelli, whether it's Endrick, right, he's on the come up, or Rafinha, right? These are guys that play at an absolutely world-class level and can bring it. Savio's a great sleeper pick. He did sub into this game on 70 minutes. He subbed in for Rafinha. But the narrative that this Brazilian team is not talented or good enough to be able to win these types of games is stupid. Because if you contrasted this team, maybe the aggregate value of this team, the Champions League appearances, the goals in top 5 leagues, however you want to do it, with Colombia, who went on to win the other match in this group against a much better Paraguay team, 2-1, right? Then you would still say Brazil's team's crazy, which means Brazil is in the category of England, right? Where we've got this incredibly talented team that all of a sudden is misfiring. We have this incredibly talented Brazilian team, as it always is, that just can't get out of its own way, that can't find a way to play effectively, that can't find a way to beat a team like Costa Rica. And this is a major tournament, right? This is not a friendly. This is not qualifying. This is the big one, right? I guess it's not the big one. This isn't the World Cup. This is Copa America. This is a legacy. These are legacy defining tournaments. You only get a couple of shots at these tournaments over the course of your career, and you show up and you draw Costa Rica. And I think the stats feel very similar to an England game as well. You got a lot of shots. You got well under 0.1 XG per shot, which is always a good indication that you're not creating a lot of good chances. And you got 70% possession, but you're just not, you're not finding a way to get into a particularly threatening spot to actually take anything from Costa Rica. And it's like, look, Costa Rica is only going to play one way, right? And so you've got to, this is the same thing I've said about England at times. You know how teams are going to line up to play against you. And the fans of England or Brazil will get mad, but like, they're not trying to play real football. No, they're trying to win the game, right? Because that's their only hope. Congratulations. Your country produces way better players than basically every team you're going to play against. So those other teams' countries are going to have, they're going to need friendship in Costa Rica's case. They're going to need a healthy dose of CONCACAF when it comes to fouls and a particular penalty shout that I'm going to show you in a second. In defense, in mental toughness. And Costa Rica delivered on it. And this Brazilian team just wasn't able to. Brazil could totally still win this tournament, right? But the warning signs are there, right? I'm not saying there's a giant forest fire about to burn down the entire Brazilian team and force everything to be reset for the first time since 2014. Right, but I'm saying there's a little smoke on the horizon here, okay? There's a little smoke on the horizon. Though there's also clearly a bit of an unfamiliarity with the way CONCACAF works in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and find that. And that was encapsulated in this penalty shout where Vinicius just gets CONCACAF'd. There's no other way to say it. Here he goes. On comes Vinicius. Yeah, I mean, look, come on. If there are no weapons involved, right? If there is no threat of invasion, if SEAL Team 6 has not been contacted, or the national equivalent of SEAL Team 6, wherever we happen to be, it's not a penalty. This is CONCACAF. You can have your limbs snapped in half, and they will not call a penalty. I realize it's Copa America, technically it's CONMEBOL, but there is a CONCACAF team on the field. And so you got to understand that you're going to have to go out there and wrestle an alligator in a mud pit for 90 minutes. And Costa Rica just has more experience in that. I mean, the fouls were actually more on Brazil's side than Costa Rica's, which it's a good thing I'm not a betting man, because I would have never bet that in my entire life. But this was just, I got tagged in this a bunch. Just such a quintessential CONCACAF moment. And a shout out to the Costa Rica fans for just having an absolutely massive ball here. They were dancing around, obviously, after the draw. Come on, a draw against Brazil when you're in the Western Hemisphere. Just incredible bragging rights. They were vibing with it. They were chanting, "Where are the sons of bitches that were going to beat us?" They couldn't find him. They can't find him on the Brazil team. And that is a problem for Brazil. All right. But like I said, this isn't a full-blown fire yet, but the smoke is there. Ronaldinho, somehow, between all of his NFT pump and dump schemes, he saw the smoke, even though he then later recanted on it. That whole thing was weird, right? But this Brazil team, I'm going to make Argentina the favorite now. I'm going to make them the favorite.